Once upon a time, the world was struck by a dangerous fungal outbreak, capable of turning humans into zombie-like creatures. In response, the government built a research facility in hopes of finding a vaccine for this zombie virus. Military personnel gathered 20 hybrid children, all of whom were born to mothers who had already transformed into zombies. According to the doctor's theory, these children could become the key to creating a vaccine if their brains and spinal cords were extracted. However, before carrying out that procedure, they believed that these children needed to learn the meaning of human life, so the resulting vaccine would be more effective. Of the 20 hybrid children, one of them showed clear signs of humanity. This child, Melanie, was able to interact, tell stories, and genuinely connect with others. She even succeeded in restraining herself when some of the other hybrid children demonstrated their true zombie-like tendencies. Moved by Melanie's behavior, her teacher, Miss Justineau, became fond of her and gently stroked Melanie's hair. Witnessing this, Sergeant Parks immediately reprimanded Miss Justineau, warning that nobody could predict when Melanie's zombie instincts might surface. Determined to enforce discipline, Sergeant Parks punished Melanie by leaving her tied up in her room. Not long after, Miss Justineau, feeling deeply remorseful, went to see Melanie to talk with her. When she entered and noticed Melanie was still bound, Miss Justineau quickly untied her. However, the moment Melanie caught the teacher's scent, her zombie impulses instantly flared, causing Melanie to cry out in desperation. She begged Miss Justineau to leave at once, fearing she might lose control and bite her teacher. Later, while Melanie was resting, Dr. Caroline Caldwell arrived to ask her a few questions. Dr. Caldwell also requested that Melanie pick a number between 1 and 20. Melanie responded with the number 13. The following day, as usual, Melanie was taken in by the soldiers. Yet it seemed that the child from room 13 was no longer showing up to class. Worried, Melanie asked Miss Justineau what had happened to that child, but Miss Justineau chose not to answer. When night fell again, Dr. Caldwell returned to Melanie, asking her to choose another number as she had done the night before. Melanie then said the number 4, which happened to be her own room number. The very next morning, Sergeant Parks arrived without a word and led Melanie out of the bunker. Outside, Melanie saw the soldiers firing at a group of zombies attempting to breach the defense perimeter. Amid this chaos, she was taken to a location where Dr. Caldwell and another colleague were already waiting. It turned out that Dr. Caldwell planned to turn Melanie into a vaccine, which was why she instructed her colleague to administer a sedative to the girl. Just as they were about to begin the operation, Miss Justineau suddenly appeared and threatened both Dr. Caldwell and her colleague. She refused to accept that Melanie, who also had the right to live, should be sacrificed. Seeing Miss Justineau's resolve, Dr. Caldwell tried to explain that this was a desperate measure to save humanity. When Miss Justineau finally lowered her guard, Dr. Caldwell sprayed a chemical solution that subdued her. She then summoned the soldiers, who immediately escorted Miss Justineau out of the area. Unbeknownst to them, zombies had broken into the facility and quickly bit Dr. Caldwell's colleague, causing her to turn. Dr. Caldwell fled into another room as her colleague transformed. In the meantime, Melanie, displaying remarkable intelligence, managed to free herself from her restraints and escape. Once outside, Melanie saw that the situation had descended into chaos, with soldiers fighting to hold off the invading zombies. During this melee, she spotted Miss Justineau being dragged away by 2 soldiers. Worried they might harm her teacher, Melanie attacked both soldiers, biting them before she eventually collapsed. By the time Miss Justineau regained full awareness, she swiftly brought Melanie away from the combat zone. Just as a zombie was about to attack Miss Justineau, Sergeant Parks intervened at the critical moment, saving her. Together they rushed to a vehicle where Dr. Caldwell was waiting, having also managed to survive. After the situation seemed somewhat under control, they stopped in a safe spot and attempted to contact their rescue base. However, when Parks noticed Melanie was inside the vehicle, he aimed his weapon at her, insisting they eliminate any threat. In response, Miss Justineau shielded Melanie and told Melanie to step outside so Sergeant Parks would hold his fire. After a while, when it became clear they had no luck contacting their base, they discovered an anti-zombie mask and finally called Melanie back, inviting her to travel onward with them. They continued their journey until they decided to stop in a nearby forest to refill their water supply. While gathering water, a strange sound echoed through the trees, causing Private Dylan to panic and fire his gun without a silencer. That loud noise attracted the zombies in the vicinity, prompting them to converge on the group. As the soldiers fought off the oncoming horde, Miss Justineau quickly untied Melanie and hurried her into the vehicle. Dylan was soon attacked by a zombie, but Sergeant Parks intervened just in time to help him. Upon discovering that Dylan had been bitten, Parks refused to let him back in the vehicle, and he made the grave choice to shoot Dylan when it became clear he was about to turn. The next day, with their vehicle damaged beyond immediate repair, they had no choice but to proceed on foot. Upon reaching the outskirts of a city, they saw countless zombies standing motionless, as if in a strange state of dormancy. Nevertheless, they bravely moved through the silent masses, hoping to scavenge some food from an abandoned housing area. Step by step, they moved very quietly, so as not to awaken the hundreds of zombies lurking around them. Once they reached the middle of this quiet horde, a motherly zombie suddenly appeared, pushing a baby stroller that made noise. Alarmed that the sound could stir the others, Dr. Caldwell tried to silence it. Yet the moment she opened the stroller, she was horrified to see that the infant had been consumed by rats. Her screams startled some of the zombies, causing them to reawaken. Sergeant Parks and the remaining survivors tried to remain calm so as not to disturb the other zombies. However, they were forced to fire back at those that had already lunged at them, all while attempting to reach a building for shelter. Inside, Sergeant Parks ordered Kieran Gallagher to check the premises with Miss Justineau, while Dr. Caldwell stayed to watch over Melanie. As night fell, Miss Justineau had no luck finding anything for Melanie to eat, but she did manage to gather some clothes that Melanie could wear. Later, Miss Justineau and Sergeant Parks had a brief conversation that revealed just how much Miss Justineau cared for Melanie. Meanwhile, Gallagher spent time listening to Melanie tell stories, even smiling slightly when Melanie showed him pictures from a book. At sunrise, they realized the number of zombies outside had grown significantly. Seeing no other choice, Sergeant Parks instructed Melanie to draw them away using noise, so the rest of the group could safely exit the building. After changing her clothes, Melanie roamed the neighborhood in search of something that could create a distraction. She came across a cat, and in that instant, her latent zombie instincts took over, compelling her to feed. When she finished, Melanie inspected several houses and eventually found a dog, which she then released in front of the zombies, prompting them to chase it. In that moment, Sergeant Parks and the others slipped away from the building to continue their journey. Eventually, they reached an area overgrown with a strange fungus, and Dr. Caldwell pointed out that this must be the next stage of the zombie fungus. Here, groups of zombies clustered together, forming a collective nest where the fungus could grow and release spores. If these spores burst out, they would disperse fungal seeds far and wide, infecting anyone who inhaled them. Should that happen, it was only a matter of time before humanity would be completely overrun. Not far from there, they found a mobile laboratory that could serve as a temporary resting place. They began investigating but found no food. Gallagher offered to go out and search for supplies, while Sergeant Parks worked on fixing the lab's vehicle. In the meantime, Melanie felt extremely hungry, so the group let her wander off to find food. After some searching, Melanie managed to catch a bird to eat. Following that, she entered an old bookstore and discovered a small group of child hybrids gathering together. Moments later, one child approached the group and announced they had found something to eat. Alarmed, Melanie rushed back to report this to Sergeant Parks, worried that the food those children had found might be Gallagher. Elsewhere, Gallagher had entered a store without carrying all his gear. Just as the others prepared to look for him, a crackling voice on the radio revealed that child hybrids were near him. Gallagher, who was just enjoying some snacks, suddenly encountered one of the hybrid children. When he tried to follow that child, he was attacked. Overwhelmed by the group, he lost his life. Before long, Sergeant Parks found Gallagher's bag and realized he was gone for good. When they exited the store, the group of child hybrids had them surrounded. Melanie stepped forward, attempting to negotiate with them. Their leader then challenged Melanie to a fight. Having little choice, Melanie accepted. As soon as the duel started, she outsmarted the leader, bringing him down in one swift move. Seeing their leader defeated, the The rest of the hybrid children refused to oppose Melanie, believing she must be much stronger than they were. Without delay, Melanie, Miss Justineau, and Sergeant Parks made their way back toward their base. However, upon arrival, they staggered and collapsed. It turned out Dr. Caldwell had released a special gas to make them lose consciousness. Caldwell then moved Melanie, intending to proceed with the surgery. But while Dr. Caldwell was sanitizing her hands, Melanie unexpectedly appeared behind her. Attempting to appeal to Melanie's empathy, Dr. Caldwell insisted that sacrificing the girl was necessary to save humanity. In response, Melanie asked what would become of the other hybrid children if she surrendered herself to the operation. Dr. Caldwell calmly stated that she did not concern herself with hybrids, as they were classified as zombies. Hearing those words, Melanie declared that she was unwilling to sacrifice her life for humans who had no regard for other living beings. She told Dr. Caldwell to remain in the base, warning that she intended to burn the zombie's nest to the ground. Dr. Caldwell, however, followed her and ended up encountering the hybrid children, who attacked her. Upon reaching the giant fungal nest, Melanie ignited a lighter, causing flames to spread rapidly through the decaying figures. This burst the spore pods and sent a wave of fresh spores drifting out into the world, ready to infect anyone who inhaled them. On her way back, she found that Sergeant Parks had emerged from the facility, determined to ensure Melanie's safety. Realizing he would soon be infected, Parks solemnly handed his weapon to Melanie, telling her to use it on him. When Sergeant Parks finally began to lose himself to the infection, Melanie reluctantly pulled the trigger, and he fell for the last time. Heartbroken, Melanie mourned his loss, knowing she had never wanted to lose Sergeant Parks or anyone else dear to her. A few days later, Miss Justineau awoke from sleep and quietly prepared her teaching materials. Outside, Melanie was busy calming the other hybrid children, who now looked to her for guidance. Finally, they gathered around Miss Justineau, ready to learn about what life could still mean in this changed world. And so, the film came to a close. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.